You ever been part of a game where you win even though they scored more goals, technically?
Yeah, fair question. Billy said he got his, or he has one like that. But I don't think I've ever seen one live for sure. So, but we needed that goal at that time, right? We were reeling a little bit. They were coming. We needed some kind of a break. And, we were fortunate to have got it, and it really helped our mental psyche. I mean, I think you saw Moose going crazy there. That really gave us a jump. It gave us a lift at a crucial time in a hockey game like that.
And welcome in to Judd's Hockey Show After Dark, because, well, when you win a game like the Wild did against the Washington Capitals, coming back for a 3-2 shootout win, we have to go immediately. I just got back from the rink. Judd Zolgad, Declan Goff. And Dex, there's so many talkers off this game. There are so many on a night when the Wild did not have 9 players, including 8 skaters, and were piecemealing things together. And it really looked like for the majority of this game that they were going to lose to the Capitals to come back. But I want to start with this one. Why don't you play Dean Evason's comments on Kevin Fiala, who went from a terrible second period in which he took 3 penalties to being a hero by scoring a shootout goal. And as you think about the maturation of this franchise and this team and certain players, what Dean says here in his post-game comments about Kevin, I think is instrumental. So let's take a listen to what Dean had to say.
Our thought was he wasn't going to play again. That's what we were doing. We talked to the group. We didn't talk to the group about him in particular. We just talked about sticking together and playing for each other and all that stuff in between the second and third. But he did have a conversation. He called me over and had a private conversation, which I won't share the details, but basically said that he understands exactly what's going on. If he plays, great. If he doesn't, he'll support his team. Meant a lot. So maybe that's another step in his development. But like I said, we were fully prepared to not play him again. But everybody gets second opportunities or more.
At the first TV timeout, he also almost in an animated way went out on the ice, skated, started sticking tapping the shin pads of all his teammates, fist pumping guys. I mean,
Yeah.
Do you think he was trying to show you that, like, look, I'm not going to mope here. I'm going to support these guys?
Yep. Yeah. That's what he did. He said regardless of if he plays or not, he's going to support his teammates. That's what we wanted. So if you're going to say it, let's give him an opportunity to prove it. And he did. He made a crucial play in the end. Obviously, he scored in the shootout, but he made a crucial play to collect that puck off of the scrum there, the face-off, and get it back. He made some sound plays. Good for him. He's he's part of the team, and hopefully this is another step in the right direction.
On a night, Declan Goff, when again there's an own goal scored by the Capitals that gave the Wild their first goal of the game. Kaapo Kahkonen played great. There was just a lot of things that transpired that were fun in this game. But I think that what we just heard there is the most important storyline, because Kevin Fiala and Dean, right, could have basically been like, it's not working. He's benched. Kevin could have pouted. And I think that there was a time, as we just heard a discussion right there, about there was a time when Kevin would have pouted and he would have been benched and been pissed off, and night would have been done. And again, you're down 8 skaters. Like, that's a remarkable statement. I was willing to sit really a top end guy for an entire period because I'm so mad. And instead of him pouting, he said, I get it totally. I am not going to check out. My bad. My fault. I think that is an incredible, it's an incredible example, Dex, of how Kevin has grown, and probably just as importantly, this entire team. Like, can you imagine 2 years ago if this had taken place? It would have been a disaster.
Yep.
I am so impressed by how all sides handled what looked like a really bad thing and turned it into probably a positive.
Self-awareness is a pretty great thing. And I feel like this team has so much self-awareness just of who they are and their identity of this team. And Kevin Fiala, who, had an awful night in the second period. 3 penalties in like a 6-minute span. Capitals get a couple power play goals. You're down Kirill, you're down Ek, you're down so many mainstay players. And to bench your most dynamic, at least on paper, player for the last 20 minutes of that period, or for the majority of that third period, I should say, pretty ballsy decision. Even though Dean references that I don't have to explain why I benched him. And I don't think there'd be any much argument from media, from fans to say, yeah, makes sense. Yes. Makes sense why I benched him. Even out of my own horse's mouth here, who loves Kevin Fiala and defends him right and left, I understood why he didn't play in the third period. It makes a whole lick of sense. But I think the way, and for whatever that conversation, whatever transpired there, I think it was incredible for Kevin to own up to it, and I think it's more important for Dean to say, who knows Fiala very well, coached him in the minors, knows his tendencies, probably even knows him for more of the things that annoys him than the good things, which is probably something that is we sometimes maybe forget about, even I forget about. But for those two to have that relationship, there's clearly a trust in one another, even though they probably drive one another crazy. Mm-hmm. For both of them to recognize that, and then Fiala to go full Kirill in the shootout move. That's Kirill's move. The Fiala shootout tally, that was a Kirill Kaprizov special right there. And then for him to get the shootout goal to help the Wild get the win, but also I think from a hockey standpoint, sometimes poo-poo and just kind of roll my eyes at, but I will say it's still important for him to be a team guy, which is what Dean said. I'm still going to support the team. I understand the mistakes I made tonight, but don't not think that I'm not going to still support this team.
Yes.
And for, I think, Dean to recognize that and for Fiala to tell him that goes a long way.
And nothing that he did on the ice got him back on. It was that. It was the fact that this guy who a year and for sure 2 years back would have gone into the big pout. There's no question about it. He would have pouted. He would have been benched. He wouldn't have taken it well. I don't think he would have said much to us, but I do think that it would have been apparent that it was not going well. And Dex, that's the type of stuff that always gets us closer to, should Kevin Fiala really be here? I mean, you could trade him. You could get a pretty good trade for him. Tonight was a hard stop on that to say, whoa, that's really impressive. This guy at a moment when he could have been embarrassed as like, hold on a second, Dino, you're benching me. We got nobody, right? Like we're down 8-9 guys and I'm being benched. And yeah, I took penalties, but come on.
Right.
We didn't see that. And tonight's the last 2 games really, and there are, again, there's a lot of tentacles to get into here, but just from a 10,000 foot view of these last 2 games, coming off 5 consecutive defeats with the season stopping and starting and starting again. You go into Boston and win against what had been a hot team. The Capitals are damn good. Now, they did play and lost in St. Louis last night, so they were in a predicament of back-to-backs. But nonetheless, you're down throughout the majority of this game, and it would have been pretty simple to be like, you know what, not our night, too bad. We're down a lot of guys. Fiala's night sort of summarizes what I like about this team as a whole.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I mean, and I would guess it's a credit to the locker room, to the players, to Dean, that there's not just this hard line, you screwed up, you're out, or I should play, right? Like Kevin could have been like, I should play. Dean, what are you doing here? Everybody, it feels like, cliche alert, everybody is in it for the team, which Dex again goes back to our discussions about the old Wild, the Vikings. When the ability to overcome adversity is what pro sports is about, and that ability is based on intangibles and acceptance and give and take. And this team right now has that. And these last 2 games, to win back-to-back games against 2 good teams, when you continue to just lose guys left and right, sorry, man. I know that I'm, lots of times negative and poo-pooing stuff. I'm impressed. I'm just impressed.
Let's say this about the Wild: the fact they got back-to-back wins against the Bruins in a game where they lost their superstar, and that broadcast was miserable. I've already aired my grievances about that. But then they come out here against the Capitals where they're completely short-staffed, essentially playing their AHL team. I mean, it was the Minnesota-Iowa Wild. I heard even the Iowa mascot, for God's sakes, was in town at the XL tonight. That's how short-staffed. It was Nordy's birthday. Okay, it's Nordy's birthday.
It was Nordy's birthday.
Happy
Blackhawks
birthday, Nordy.
Mascot, Predators mascot.
Oh, God, don't know. We're not going to go down there. But I think it shows that this team can still find ways to win. How refreshing is it? I know this is a lot of fans that consume us and consume Judd's hockey show. I'll say this first, are coming here for hockey takes. They're coming here to watch you and I talk about the Wild and what we learned and what we saw. But how refreshing is it, even just from a Minnesota sports broad spectrum, of someone who maybe is joining the show that likes the Wild, but is also maybe just not all in on the Wild because maybe you don't really care, or it's just you're not your favorite team, which I completely understand. Sure. But how refreshing is it to see, if you were a common sports fan, to see a team that was essentially playing their minor league players and has injuries left and right, and they still find ways to win games. When we have watched the 2021 Vikings, oh man, if Cook didn't fumble, if Joseph hits that kick, if they get a stop on third down, they should be 4 wins better. They should be, but guess what? They're not.
Right.
They're not. The Wild have figured out ways to still win games when adversity's been slapping them on both sides of the face over the last month. They're still figuring out ways to win games. That's what's refreshing to me as a Minnesota sports fan, to see a team that is able to handle adversity and not make any damn excuse about something. When one of your star players is having a terrible night, the coach has benched you. Right. Mike Zimmer would have said, did you see Fiala's game tonight? I didn't have to have a conversation with him. You saw what you saw.
Right.
There was no conversation. That doesn't matter to you, and whatever. Where Dean Evison said, no, I recognize that. I thought that was important. I wanted him to get back into it. Chris Finch even has this to a degree with the Timberwolves. He's not afraid to publicly call out one of his core star players, but then still give an honest response and still keep it all in the locker room and keep it as a team of how I can build up that player. Yep. That's what's impressive to me about the Wild, and that's what is so 180 different about the Vikings, which ironically enough, this Vikings team looks like the 2018 Wild with the Stalls and Koivus and the last of the Niederreiter, Coils, etc.
Yep.
That's why it's so funny to me, but at the same time, the Wild getting 4 huge points against the Bruins and Capitals for the standings right now after not playing for essentially the better part of the last 2.5 weeks was huge.
And it's not a fluke now. Because the sample size is growing and growing and growing. It's not a fluke that this team wins late or ties late. Like, this is not I think that we as fans and teams as an excuse often want to say, like the 2021 Vikings did, that if they lose late, we could have won, to your point, Dex, those games, right? But at some point in time, okay, that might be true for 1 or 2 games. But if it's 4 or 5 games, that's not a fluke. That's you. And the flip side is this team, which has 10 or 11 6-on-5 goals, and 4 or 5 have tied scores late, which is pretty doggone good. And the nice thing too is when the Wild had Kaapo Kahkonen, who we'll talk about in a second, pulled tonight, and Zuccarello scored with 34.7 seconds left, you're not surprised now. And it's not like, they started to try hard now. No, they actually tried hard. But this team's identity, more so than the actual players, I think, Declan, this team's identity is refreshing and impressive.
Yep.
And there's nothing about what they're doing that I feel the need to say it's a fluke or just wait. Now, I have no idea if this team can make a run. I don't know. And perhaps with injuries and how weird things have been, they can't. I don't know that one. But I do have an ability, having watched this team play as much as we have and as much as we do, I do have an ability to appreciate this team. And just to go through the list. So 9 guys tonight, unavailable, okay? Kaprizov, upper body. Eriksson Ek, same thing. Greenway and Duhaime, COVID. Bukestad, out 6 weeks. Brodeen, out. And it could be a long time, and that's bad news.
Bad news. Bad news.
Spurgeon, hurt and out. Talbot, hurt and out. And then I think it was not too long before the game started, Goligoski, COVID. So you are literally, I just went through a list of what, 1, 2, 3 key defensemen, absolutely key, out. Your starting goalie, out. Forwards, including Kaprizov and Ek, absolutely key instrumental players, out. But that gets us to a second consecutive game in goal. Kaapo.
Yep.
Kaapo in Boston was really good. And we talked about it on JHS after that game. Again tonight, he was damn good. And so, in fact, he allowed 2 goals on 31 shots. Certainly made it intriguing there late in OT when he tried to outrace Ovechkin for a puck, backhanded the puck essentially, I think, to Tom Wilson of the Capitals, and then had to make a save on Wilson's quick shot from basically the faceoff dot. He was in the faceoff circle. So, I mean, that got a little bit dicey. But the point being is, back-to-back games, he's been outstanding, Declan. He has been outstanding. And that's just the depth of this team and the ability of guys, at least in these last 2 games, to step forward and not just do a nice job, but do a damn good job. And in goal as well. I mean, that gives you more and more confidence that with Talbot out, they can at least weather the storm.
Yeah, Kaapo's been phenomenal over the last, honestly, 6-7 games here. I know he's been having to basically carry the team with Cam Talbot now injured. But Kaapo, again, I think had another very inspiring performance. Our friend of the show, Jesse Pierce, joined us and write that down from the Bar Down Beauties podcast. They do a great job as well if you're interested in another Wild podcast. She said they're going to trade Kaapo Kahkonen by the deadline. She just doesn't think that, number one, he's the answer, and 2, maybe you can get something for him because he's still young and you don't know what you can unlock from him. Another team could bite. But Kaapo was great tonight. Another big performance. Capitals are no slouch. They're without Oshie. And I know they're coming off the heels of a back-to-back, but Kaapo could have been overwhelmed.
First line. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. That first line's damn good, too.
And Kaapo had
really good.
Big performance tonight. I thought his comments too. I was watching. I saw a highlight on Twitter. I watched the opposing broadcast, which I'll get into here in a little bit later on in the show from the Capitals side. But Kaapo said, I like playing the best teams. I like playing the best teams because they can show me that I can hang with these guys, which is number one. Goalies are so much weirdos, and they're kind of honestly overly confident people, sometimes to their favor and sometimes to their also downfall, as we have seen from certain goaltenders here in Wild history. But I thought Kaapo's comments about that were really interesting, and there is a belief here that Kaapo actually is legitimate. You don't have to go out and spend maybe a third-round pick to get a backup to get to Cam. There might be a two-headed monster here. I mean, remember last year, Judd, you and I were flip-flopping. Who's start at the first part of last season in the shortened 56 gamer? We said, who is going to start game 1?
I was thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
Kaapo played great at that time.
And then he was streaky. Talbot was battling injuries. Talbot's also been very streaky this year. He's rode in waves of being basically unplayable to being waves where, this is a guy you can ride and can probably steal you a game or 2 in the playoffs.
Yep.
I will say, playoff-wise, Talbot is tested. Talbot hasn't ever looked really that overmatched in even prior Wild tenure in the postseason. He's weathered the storm. He's done enough to prove that he's an NHL caliber goalie that you can rely on in the playoffs. Can he carry you to a Stanley Cup over 4 rounds? Well, who knows? That there's only a select few that can do that, and it's honestly more of a judgment call than it is a projecting outside of the top 2 or 3 goaltenders in the NHL. But I thought Kaapo was phenomenal tonight. Mm-hmm. I thought he had a very another big strong game. Analytically, he's kind of risen back up above that goal saved above average. I believe my guy Jay Fresh Hockey does a great job on analytics, and if you want to know more about analytics, I highly recommend subscribing to his Patreon account. He breaks it down in visual ways that make it very easy to understand and explain. I believe the Wild coming into tonight were exactly zeros. They were dead even in goals saved above expected, which is a metric that basically says, can an average goalie stop these goals? And is the team overperforming and stopping those goals, or are they underperforming? Like, for example, Colorado's been miserable in goaltending this year. Darcy Kemper's won a lot of games because Colorado's good, but he's looked awful. And he has been allowing goals he should not be allowing.
He's not that good.
And he's not that good.
He was good in Arizona, yeah.
But the Wild this season they've been stopping the exact amount of goals they should be stopping. They're not stopping them more at a higher rate, but they're also not allowing them more at a rate that is hurting them. So they've been exactly basically league average in that statistic, which is fine, but you probably still want them to be positive if you have a belief that they can make a playoff run. I thought Kaapo Kahkonen had a big start tonight.
Yeah, and if these past 2 games he is not outstanding, they don't win.
Yep.
So and that's where, and I don't think that he needs to become 1A, but with Cam out, he needs to be a solid 1B. Like, it can't be out, well, he was a backup and now he's got to play and this is not good. So the fact that he has the ability, and we did, to what you're talking about, Declan, we did see this last year when we actually had a few weeks there, I think, where we debated if the playoffs started today, would Kaapo start? And he was, in that case, at that time, a 1B who was playing really well. And that's what he's doing now. And I think I can safely say that if he does not have an outstanding game in Boston a couple nights back and tonight against the Caps, the Wild lose both games. And that doesn't mean that they wouldn't have tried hard. It just means that they lose both games. I want to talk to you about a guy tonight who I felt was outstanding. And I don't think he's going to get, in all the storylines that exist about this game, I don't think he's going to get a lot of attention, but I think it's worth talking about because it's a seismic shift with as many guys out in how this team performed. Matthew Boldy. He went from, he started the game with Rossi at center and Foligno on the right wing. And then when Fiala got benched, and they did not change this, and they might not now, he was promoted to the first line, Zuccarello on the right wing, Boldy on the left wing, Hartman at center. Matthew Boldy tonight showed what I have been talking about, which is he plays wing, but he is a hybrid center. He has the ability. He made about 5 really nice passes. Should he shoot more? Perhaps. But that being said, he's got really good sense and ice sense and hockey sense. And he made some outstanding plays. And if you watch this kid in person, Dex, it's really like he does a lot of very smart things. He looks like he's been in this league for like 2 or 3 years. And with guys out, I really think that he's huge. Rossi doesn't shock me. Marco Rossi has really good speed, and I think he's going to be a good player. But as we talked about when both these guys got the call, Marco Rossi is probably borderline, like he's trying to get a sense of himself here, and I don't know that he 1000% definitively belongs here yet. He certainly doesn't look bad, but I don't think that he looks. He doesn't look completely comfortable yet. Boldy looks comfortable, and I'll make the same statement that I made after he scored in his first game against the Bruins. He is what I envision a power forward player with skill being. And tonight, I just thought he played an outstanding game that's probably not going to be talked about a lot.
What's so funny is Boldy and Rossi are 6 months apart in age. So, I mean, they're essentially the same age. You know, they're both 20 years old. Boldy was drafted in 2019. Marco Rossi being drafted, in 2020, just a year later. Rossi was the higher pedigree pick. He was a top 10 pick. Boldy was the 19th overall pick in I will say, a loaded draft. The 2019 draft, and I think we're going to talk about in 5 or 10 years being one of those very special drafts from like 2003, 2004.
Sure.
So it's going to be a special draft. Trevor Zegras looks like he's going to be an absolute stud.
Right.
It's a special draft. What's so funny to me is Boldy and Rossi are 6 months apart, but Boldy has played college hockey at an elite level. He stepped from the AHL right away and played at an elite level. Rossi obviously had the heart myocarditis condition that kept him out of playing hockey for good reason last year. So he is not as fresh. He's not as experienced. He's not as ripe, basically, as Boldy is. And look, Rossi tore up the OHL, and the OHL, for someone to do what he did, the Capitals broadcast touched on this tonight, is damn impressive for an 18-year-old what he did. But the OHL is also an offensive first league.
Yep.
Points happen all the time.
Yep.
I think it's safe to say, and I was going to throw this question at you because I was going to ask you what your opinion was of both of them in person, having you being at the X tonight. It seems like to me, if because the Wild are off here for 6 days, if players start to get healthy, it wouldn't shock me at all if Rossi were to be sent down, but it would shock me if Matthew Boldy ever plays a game in Iowa again.
Agreed.
Like
Agreed completely.
I think Matthew Boldy, I would be shocked if Matthew Boldy gets demoted.
And Boldy is, one, he's bigger. Two, he's playing wing. And I think the ability to adapt there quicker is probably not as tough. I mean, in Rossi's defense, he is stepping in and playing a position that's damn tough. Like there's a ton of responsibilities. I think that there's far more expected of you at center from a team standpoint. And so I think the ask there is more, but I think you're 1,000% right. Boldy doesn't just belong here. When guys get healthy, he's a top 6 guy for sure. And I'm talking with everybody back. But Matthew Boldy to me is everything that we wanted Greenway, as I said a couple nights ago after the Boston game. Coyle, he's that guy. And so I don't think he's just going to stick here. I think he's a top 6 guy. He's that good. He's that talented. And if what I've seen in 2 games, including tonight in person, is what's to come, we're talking about a guy who's going to knock your socks off. Like, he's that good. And so, Marco Rossi is being asked to do probably a tougher job. And if he goes back down, I won't be shocked. Matthew Boldy doesn't just belong here. He belongs here playing an absolute ton.
I like Darian's comment here with the addition of Matthew Boldy. Is this the end of Kevin Fiala? By the way, if you like daily Minnesota sports entertainment, hit the subscribe button.
Look at that.
For Minnesota Wild, Vikings, Timberwolves entertainment right here. Mackie and Judd, Declan Goff from Score North. I think long-term, yes. To answer Darian's questions, yes. This was kind of always the plan in place. As much as I have sang Kevin Fiala's praises, and I think it's dangerous to punt and give up on just natural goal scorers because you need legitimate goal scorers to compete in the NHL. I do think so. I don't know if Fiala gets moved at the deadline. It wouldn't shock me if you were to acquire a high-profile player that Kevin Fiala's name gets dangled, mostly because of salary cap reasons. Like, you basically almost have to swap out money. I think Kevin's at like 5.75 in that arbitration deal he has. So you essentially, whatever contract you're inheriting, so if it would be Thomas Hertl, which is someone we have been kicking around, honestly, recklessly speculating on since the summer, as we like to do here on Score North. If it was Thomas Hertl, you would have to probably move Fiala just to make salaries work on top of other things that make the trade work. So I think long-term, to answer Darian's question here, is yes, I think Boldy does push Fiala out. Now, I'm not in a rush to do it. I'm not going to rush to trade Fiala at the trade deadline, Judd. I don't know what you think on that, but if you were to get a Thomas Hertl, if you were to get a center of the magnitude, I think it's almost inevitable, and also just because of math-wise, that Kevin Fiala goes away in that trade.
Okay, I think at this point
By
in
the
time,
way, Thomas Hertl with a hat trick tonight.
He's very, very good. I think at this point in time, Bill Guerin is not going to trade Kevin just to trade him. As far as the acquisition of a potential top center, especially, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Hertl's in the last year of his contract. So he would be a rental. As far as that goes, a lot of my personal opinion about that is going to hinge on when our guys coming back. Like, if Brodin's out for the long term. My confidence in an actual playoff run goes down a bit. Kaprizov, I don't know. So like some of this is going to depend on who can I get back when. I would not be surprised, Declan, because I do think that there's a good chance that at some point in time he's dealt. I would not be surprised if he is traded though in the summertime. And if the trade doesn't turn into something that makes more sense as far as not an immediate need, but get something back that you like a lot because Boldy is going to play a ton. I have reservations right now in watching this year how weird things are too about what this team is going to do to make a run. I was much more confident about that a month back or 2 months back. I'm less confident now. It's not because I don't like this team. I do. But I think Bill is also cognizant of the fact that if he's going to make trades, especially with this team up against the cap for 2 or 3 years now coming up, that they're going to be that they're not necessarily going to be trades for the right now. They might be trades that are going to put you in a good position.
Let me ask you I don't have the sounder, unfortunately, but let me give you just a reckless trade idea right now. I think I know your answer to it, but I'm just going to throw it out here as a trade proposal.
Sure.
What if you went up to San Jose and you said, we want Thomas Hertl, but we'll give you Kevin Fiala and we'll give you Jesper Wallstedt, the young stud goalie that the Wild just drafted and was looking well in the World Juniors tournament before it was canceled. But if you weren't able to give up any draft picks, but you gave up the 20th overall pick from just 8 months ago from the last NHL draft, Kevin Fiala and Jesper Wallstedt, a goalie that San Jose could potentially build around for years to come and still get a nice dynamic forward in Kevin Fiala. What is your thoughts on that trade?
Jesper Wallstedt's not being traded by me. I love him. I think he is your Talbot replacement. And Kaapo, God bless him, I don't know that he is the guy. I think Wallstedt's the guy. So I think that they're positioned really well with Cam Talbot to use him up and then show him the door. And Wallstedt, who is 18 or 19?
19.
Like he's a kid.
19.
But you're positioned to bring him in, and I think that he is then your goalie. I saw him play before they canceled the tournament. Stupid.
I'm putting up all these comments for the exact
I see.
reason.
I'm not going to call you stupid. This is reckless speculation. It's a lifestyle choice. It's not like make the trade. It's you throw out the trades to say yay or nay.
Yeah.
And I'm saying nay. I saw Wallstedt play one game before they canceled the World Juniors, and I loved him. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the skills, he's got the technique. I loved him. I think he is your goaltender. So no, and again, I am very, as much as I like this team, I am very on the fence about what I think they can do. So do I want to do a rental? And I don't know that the answer to that question is yes. I might be more inclined to trade Fiala in the summer in a trade that's going to net me pieces that I can use eventually. That's just a thought. But yeah, I think I think you drafted your goalie, and God bless Bill Guerin in this franchise for making what's a ballsy move. But if they have a rookie goalie come in on a rookie contract, I love that.
So number one, let me just, as everyone is throwing out in the YouTube comments,
piling on you, and I didn't pile on you, for the record.
And I love coming up with especially wild, reckless trade speculations,
you're
pun
gonna get
intended.
hammered on Twitter
because I've been hammered before.
In fact, you should
in
tweet that.
Audio form and everything else. No, I'm not going to tweet it. I don't want to be hashtag
I might
ratio for
tweet
that
it
one.
out.
Go for it. You can do it for
I
me.
might tweet out that you suggested.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the fun part about always coming up with trades, and this honestly goes beyond the Wild. It goes to other Minnesota sports teams, because actually hockey and baseball are very much in the same bin when it comes to when you try to come up with trades.
Sure.
Because there's prospect pools, right? Like football, you draft a guy day one, and he's probably going to contribute to you. Basketball, for the most part, also similar situation.
Yep.
it's always hilarious to me when, all right, well, let's come up with a trade idea. Okay, well, we have these top 3 prospects. Okay, we can't trade any of these top 3 prospects. Well, here's the deal. If you want Thomas Hertl, if you want the marquee guy, one of those 3 has to go.
Right.
So which of those evils, which of those poisons are you willing to swallow to say, all right, I guess I can part with that guy? This is not a video game where you can just turn off the GM mode and say, hey, I'm going to make a trade out of thin air for whomever I can come up with. You have to give something back up.
Right.
So yes, the Wild drafted Jesper to be their goaltender of the future. He's 19 years old, and let me just say, goaltending prospects are a lot like baseball prospects. There is a good chance that Jesper, even with how well he looked in the World Juniors, you won't see Jesper Wallstedt in a Wild uniform regularly for 2 years, maybe even 3 years.
Yeah, I'd
It's
say 2
probably
years,
more likely 2 to 3 years.
Yep, 21, 22, yeah.
You and I have talked about this with past Wild teams. You can't get in the assumption, and this is where fans get in a trap. You can't get an assumption that in 2025, when we're doing a podcast 3 years from now, that the Wild are still at the same level. They're still competing for a cup. They're still running things. Unfortunately, for a team like the Wild as they're constructed in this media market, you can't have that assumption. So that's where I would not be hesitant to make that trade. And if San Jose said, yeah, we'll take Fiala, we want Jesper Wallstedt, and Bill Guerin said, oh, I cannot do that, I would have reservations. But Bill Guerin knows what the hell he's doing, and I'm just a guy with a microphone.
And Hertl's a rental, so like he's really good, but it's a rental. You're going for it. You better be damn sure. And I don't know if guys are going to be, if we've got certain players here who are going to be out for a long time or potentially the season, that changes my opinion some. That changes the dynamic because it's not like you're going to keep the player. I mean, with how much the Wild's up against the cap, if they trade for Thomas Hertl as a rental, he walks, and I don't really like that one. So would I consider a Fiala trade with a draft pick or a different prospect? Yeah, I probably would. But again, I need to pull the reins back here and see where this team is at as well, and see where things are. I will say that if you're getting at the point that expecting Rossi to contribute really significantly into the playoffs is too big of ask, I don't disagree there, because I think what you're asking him, I think Marco Rossi's going to be really good, but I also think that expecting him to be really good in the course of the 2021-22 season is a big ask. So yeah, I mean, but reckless speculation is exactly that. So yeah, I see that folks are really down on you, and it's hard. I mean,
but that's not surprising either.
It's late at night. Come on, folks, cut decks a break. The own goal. Okay.
Yeah, what was that like in person?
It was. I literally said to myself in the press box, "That's going to go in the net," and then you're like, for a second, you're like, "Is it going to count?" And the conversation that took place among the officials, and I think Ovechkin was, I don't know, he was mad, but he was sort
pissed.
Of protesting, was that Marcus Foligno had touched the puck. Now, he had deflected it, but he didn't gain control. And officially the rule is, and this is interpreted by crews very differently at times, officially the rule is, if I touch the puck, but I don't control it, the play is not dead. And so I believe it was Carl Hagelin flipped the puck back towards the point in the Wild zone, and he flipped it towards Ovechkin and another, I believe, Capitals player. It split them and went into the goal. So that's 2-1. Initially, the goal was credited to Ryan Hartman, but the rule is it's the last player to have touched it, which was, because he deflected it, Foligno. The funniest thing is his 100th career goal.
That's right.
So it's this historical marker. Here's the great part. Marcus Foligno will forever be a trivia question that I don't think has been accomplished previously or will ever be again. Marcus Foligno's 100th goal came on a credited goal on which he does not get credited with a shot on goal because he didn't shoot the puck. Right. So he got the goal without a shot. And actually, I got a note from, so I tweeted Jason Stark, who loves like weird sports stats, and he's
yeah.
like Mr. Baseball,
He's
weird
come on our
sport,
shows. Yep.
weird stats. Yeah, he's a great guy. I tweeted him, "You'll love this," and he tweeted me back, and he researched it, and I vaguely recall this. Did Eriksson Ek get credited for a similar goal against the Coyotes? I think it was a game in Arizona where he got a goal, no shot, and it was something that was along the same lines. It might have been an empty net goal that was at the end of a game, and in this case, this was a delayed penalty. But he found it that Eriksson Ek, no shot on goal, credited with the goal against the Coyotes, I think into an empty net near the end of a game.
Yes, Jason Stark did reply back to you and said Eck did it in Arizona last year. Jeremy's comment here, the Cap announcers went nuts. I was watching the Capitals broadcast, and I believe, and I looked this up too, they said that's the first time it's happened because it happened to the benefit of the Capitals 2 years ago. Josh Bailey of the Islanders, a similar situation. Josh Bailey put the puck in his own net while the Capitals also had a delayed penalty called against them. They didn't say that who got credit for the goal from the Washington standpoint, but they were also going nuts. They were like, that's going to go. They said the same thing as it was trickling in from neutral ice into the Capital zone. I forget the play-by-play announcer. That's going to go in the net. That's going to go in the net.
He said the same thing I said. I said, that's going in the net.
That's going in the net. So, just one of the most wackiest goals I've ever seen. I mean, I wasn't there in person either, and I'm sure it was even – the funny thing is from people that don't know, from our listeners' standpoint, I'll say watching hockey from the press box at the XL Energy Center, just to give you a visual, we're high up. We're the highest up as you can possibly be. So we're above even the 200 level. Yep. But the game – and I say this as someone who hasn't played hockey, the game looks really easy from up there. And the game looks slower, much slower than you think from up there. It looks a lot easier from up there in person. I'm sure watching that puck just meticulate its way down the ice saying, oh my God, that's going to go in the net. Must have been some sight to see. So I thought it was one of the wackiest and most hilarious goals I've ever seen happen. But yeah, I mean, they do happen every, blue moon, you could say, right? Like it happens every few years and whatnot, but one of the wackiest things, man. One of the wackiest things.
So it actually took place, the same exact thing, delayed penalty took place in a Gopher Badger game a few months back.
That's right.
In Madison.
Yeah.
And the Badgers did the same exact thing, threw it back to the point, and you're watching it on TV in that case going down the ice, and I'm, oh my God, that's gonna go in the goal, and that counts. The first goaltender in the history of the National Hockey League to be credited with the goal was Billy Smith, and he was credited with the goal because it was the Islanders and Rockies back when Colorado had the Rockies, and Rob Ramage of the Rockies did the same exact thing. He threw the puck back towards the point. It went right past where the point guy was supposed to be and into the Rockies' own goal. In that case, the last person to touch the puck was the goaltender, Billy Smith. And that was the only National Hockey League goal scored by a goalie, I think, until Ron Hextall actually did fire the puck into an empty net towards the end of a game playing for the Flyers. And if I'm not mistaken, Hextall scored a couple of goals that way throughout the course of his career. But yeah, it was a bizarre night. There was a lot of bizarre stuff. There was just a lot of weird. It was a fun game. And look, I went there thinking, no Kaprizov, 9 guys out. This game's going to stink. But I want to see Ovechkin. I want to see. And the last thing is, for the first time, because I've been to a few Capitals Wild games at the X.
Me too.
For the first time on the Capitals power play, I decided I am going to watch Ovechkin a lot. Like, I'm not going to watch the play. I'm going to watch him.
I do this every time I go to.
He stays out there for the entire thing, which does have 2 groups. He just is in both groups. And the incredible thing now, if I felt like more often tonight he dropped back to a point, but the first Capitals power play, Ovechkin decks, and I tweeted this, and this is There is zero judgment, okay? He's one of the greatest players of all time. He has scored more power play goals than anybody else. So I am not like,
I
this is
think
not a
he'll break
take.
the record. I do think he'll break the record.
Exactly.
personally.
So, but what I'm saying is this is not a take. It's an observation. He literally, when the puck is cleared, lollygags. So he went out to the Wild. So he went from his quote unquote power play office in the circle. Puck gets cleared. He goes essentially to, in this case, the Wild side of neutral. He waits. They come back in. He joins them, goes right to his place. It's a remarkable testament at his age and with his experience and the fact that he plays the entire power play. It's a remarkable testament to how he keeps himself fresh. It was so interesting because you could be like, well, come on, man, try harder. And he did. There was a power play or two after that where he did more. But I loved that because it's like these guys like Ovechkin, LeBron James, they're so damn smart in how they maintain themselves.
What I noticed, and this was just on TV, was during the first Capitals power play opportunity, I believe Kalen Addison was out there for the first PK shift, and poor Kalen Addison, who was in charge of flanking and trying to potentially block Ovi's office there, just in that circle, in his Ovi Island, as I like to call it, even.
I like that.
And every time the puck's the point, poor Kalen, and I even noticed Kalen Addison's got his head basically locked into his shoulder, ready to potentially sell out, but also like, I'm going to sell out, but I'm going to take the worst slap shot in the world.
Yes.
In the possible, and I think I know what I'm doing here, but I'm being thrown in the fire, and the poor kid has to be tasked with trying to block Ovechkin's slap shot. Like,
no.
Good luck, man.
No,
like,
man.
I don't blame you at all.
The goaltender, let the goaltender take that shot.
Yes, no
let
kidding.
the goaltender take that shot.
Oh my God.
Because you could deflect it accidentally, or worse, block it. You know what? Kaapo Kahkonen has all of those pads on. Give him a clear view of said shot.
Yeah.
So he's got a chance, but yeah, do not take that shot, man. That's gonna hurt like hell.
Last thing from me here before we wrap. So I obviously, as you know, I like to try to watch the opposing broadcasts. When I watch Wild games, I watched the Capitals broadcast tonight. I was not impressed.
Joe Bettinati, right?
Yep. Joe Bettinati's the play-by-play.
Craig Lachlan.
I believe he was on color tonight.
He's been around forever too.
And both those guys, and I think because of COVID protocols, were in studio, so they were back in the Washington.
Is this
side
the new
of
thing
things.
now?
It might be.
I
think
like
it might be.
Yeah, I feel like.
So they were back in studio,
Okay.
but you would one of the things that, and there's numerous of them, that gripes me about the local broadcast is when the opposing team scores, it just stays the exact same, and Zolgad scores from the circle, and we're tied.
And they do the
2.
same. Yeah, that's what
When
Goaltender
the
does.
Wild tied it in regulation, if it wasn't for me going bah when they actually scored the goal, you would have, if you weren't looking up, you would have had no idea that the game was just tied with 36 seconds left. And
Yeah, you
that
gotta be
stuff
excited.
just infuriates me. Man. And I will say, calling the game from the studio is a different feel, but they are professional broadcasters here, okay? So it's not like they're amateurs and they don't know what they're doing. I expected a little bit more. I've honestly liked a lot of the other local broadcasts that I've been able to watch throughout the last year or so, with the means I watch the games, but I was not impressed with the Capitals tonight. Second straight podcast I've had to come on and bitch about the broadcast. I don't like doing that.
I don't like the thing about not being excited about goals. Look, the flat line thing, I hate that. It's like, it's fine if you want to be upset that your team got the game tied against them, that's fine, but show some emotion. Like in that game, had a lot of weird twists and turns and plot twists, and it was fun. I hate this thing where broadcasters have decided that if my team does not score, I'm going to be flatline. It's like, why?
Yeah, get excited, man.
In my youth, Al, who did a great job, yes, Shaver was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But when the opposing team would score, Al Shaver would raise his voice. Like he would get excited about it. It's a goal. Like there's no like, well, they just scored a goal. So yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Show some emotion.
Show some emotion, man.
And enjoy this game. I mean, that was a really, really fun.
Yeah.
game.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
Show it. Show excitement. So, yeah. All right. Tell people where they can consume more Judd's Hockey Show and all of our Score North programming, and then do your thing.
Yeah, Judd Zolgad on my right here. I'm Declan
That's
Goff.
me.
Judd's Hockey Show. We provide Minnesota Wild content for you right here on our Score North YouTube channel. If you like daily Minnesota sports entertainment, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. These podcasts also exist on Apple, on Spotify. The Score North app is a kind of central hub for everything you want for Score North, from Judd's written work, from our videos, from our podcasts. There's plenty of stuff right there on the app. It's on the Apple and the Google Play Store. And then if you also loved your Minnesota Vikings, which that season desperately wraps up tomorrow, hang out with us on Ventline.
We're
We
gonna
will be
have a lot.
launching Ventline. It's not
Mike Zimmer.
It's not to break down the game. I can
Nope.
tell you that much.
Nope.
We'll be breaking things down on our Purple Daily YouTube channel. That's a secondary YouTube channel that we have. Hit the subscribe button on that for also daily Minnesota Vikings entertainment. But I will say now that the Vikings are over, Judd, and baseball never ever coming back for all as I know.
Yeah.
It's Wild and Timberwolves season right here for Score North, on top of some reckless speculation on the NFL and what the Vikings are going to do. There's going to be some new faces in charge here. You and I broke down a podcast from Jason Locke and Fora, basically confirming that Mike Zimmer is going to be axed tomorrow. What are they going to do with Rick Spielman? So
Yep.
there's plenty of things still to discuss here in the Minnesota
Vikings.
sports scene.
Vikings fodder.
Never sleeps.
It does not. And the nice thing is, there's at least one team, if not two now, in this town likable. The Wild for sure, and I think the Wolves. The Wolves are pushing closer. So yes, exactly right. All right, say your thing, and we'll see y'all soon.
Pass, shoot, score, and after Wild wins, we do one last thing. Thank you for watching.
Listen, you guys know what this is all about, right? Right? What's it all about? Spurgey?
Hard work and having fun.
That. This is about winning.